All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pozios Picks. This is episode 70, and we are going over week 2 of the college football slate. I've got a bunch of games for you guys, a bunch of the featured games. You know I'm going to go over Michigan State as well. So, without further ado, let's just get right into things. The first game I want to go over, the big noon game, obviously. Alabama is traveling to Texas. Alabama are 20.5-point favorites on the road here. This game is back for the first time since 2010. The game is in Austin, like I said, so the environment is going to be crazy. Personally, though, I think they're going to get disappointed very quickly. Alabama looked incredible last week. I know it was Utah State, but they didn't allow a single point. They only gave up 57 yards in the air and had almost 600 yards of offense. Bryce Young is already tied now for the favorite to repeat as the Heisman Trophy winner. He looks as good as ever. This team is full of stars, and even though Texas is solid on the offensive side of the ball, I think the main difference here is going to be Texas's defense. That's obviously been a weak point for them for as long as I can remember. And with that Alabama offense coming in, I think it's going to be tough to stop them. I'm going to move some lines here to make it a little bit more comfortable because, like I said, that environment's going to be crazy. I think early Texas could put up a little fight, but I'm going to still roll with Alabama. I'm going to take them minus 19.5 for the game. So I'm going to buy a point, take a little bit of juice. I'm also going to take the over 63 in this one. Both of these offenses are the feature of both of these teams. They're the better side of the ball, definitely, for both of these squads. So I think the over 63 is a great bet. Texas is definitely going to put up some sort of fight. Their only shot, I think, is on offense for them to score some points. So the over 63, I think, is a great bet as well. I personally don't see how we lose both, but you never know. The next game on the slate that I'm going to go over is Tennessee traveling to Pitt. Tennessee are 6-point favorites on the road here after a dominant performance last week at home. Tennessee's offense, flat out, might be one of the best in the country. Even though they started slow last week, Pitt, we saw Keaton Slovis have a bit of success, put some points up on the board as well. They did get some help from their defense, obviously, but they put up 38 points last week. Another thing we saw, though, was JT Daniels having a lot of success moving the ball against this Pitt defense. Obviously, Narduzzi is a defensive-minded coach. It was a bit of surprise to see them move the ball like they did, but it happened. They gave up 31 points, and if it weren't for some crazy plays, I think West Virginia goes into Pitt and wins that game. I mean, we kind of had that fluke interception at the end there. Obviously, I had Pitt, so I was happy that it happened, but Pitt did not look like the better team for most of that game. Hendon Hooker and the Vols are looking for a big win here on the road, one that would definitely continue to boost their ranking. My favorite play for this game is going to be Tennessee team total over 34.5. Flat out, I just think this team has at least 5 touchdowns in them, especially after we saw what West Virginia did against this Pitt defense. I think Tennessee is going to have more success moving the ball. They dominated on offense last week. They looked incredible. I'm also leaning Tennessee to win this game. I'm scared that it's 6 points on the road. That feels kind of tough to cover a touchdown. So if I do take something, I would probably move the spread down to about a field goal, minus 3-ish. I think it's about minus 165, so it's not terrible if you want to put a couple units on that as well. But the main play I'm going to take for this game is Tennessee team total over 34.5. Next game on the slate, one of my favorite games of the day, actually, in terms of betting. Washington State is going to Wisconsin to take on the Badgers. The Badgers are 17.5-point favorites at home. Wisconsin looked really good last week, winning a 38-point shutout, obviously, against a much lesser team. Washington State also coming off a win, but did not look nearly as convincing against Idaho, winning that game 24-17, and that game was a lot closer than the score indicated. Braylon Allen, the Wisconsin running back, is continuing to live up to the hype. He really looks like the real deal. Should have a ton of success on the ground tomorrow against the Wildcats defense. The Wisconsin defense is going to be solid as always. They always put out a good unit. They always lose guys, but they seem to reload. If Wisconsin wants to cover the spread, that defense has to hold up, but more importantly, we need to see some more of that consistent play from quarterback Graham Mertz. He looked solid last week and was able to make some big completions. So if they can continue to do that with Allen running the ball, I think this Wisconsin offense can actually make a little bit of noise. I like the Badgers at home here, like I said, if that defense holds up for us. I'm going to move the spread down a point as well here, keep it a little bit safe. The official pick for this one is going to be Wisconsin minus the 16.5 at home. The next game on the slate is going to be Akron traveling to East Lansing to take on my Michigan State Spartans. The Spartans are laying 34.5 points here at home. Let's get into this one. After struggling heavily last week, really during the first 3 quarters of the game, the Spartans were able to rally last week and actually cover the 21.5 points against Western Michigan. That looked dead for most of the game. I was really surprised that it happened. I was happy that it happened as well. Akron, on the other hand, needed overtime to beat St. Francis, Pennsylvania, an FCS school, at home. I believe they were 16.5 point favorites in that game. They needed overtime to take home that win. Michigan State left a ton of points on the board last week, and Peyton Thorne played arguably his worst game in a Spartan uniform. I know for a fact after that performance, he's itching to get back out there, make a statement, and prove that this offense can still be a bit of a force in the Big Ten after losing Kenneth Walker and some other weapons over the summer. Keon Coleman looked fantastic last week. If Keon can continue to play how he's been playing, continue to be that great deep threat, and take some pressure off of Jaden Reed, I think this offense can actually be something exciting to watch. Transfer running back Jalen Berger also looked fantastic last week. The offensive line looked pretty good. They held up okay, especially in the run game. Berger rushed for 120 yards on 16 carries, added a touchdown as well. That was obviously the big question, losing Kenneth Walker, but we looked solid in the run game. This MSU defense also looked a bit better than last year. I've been saying it. They couldn't get much worse than we were last year, but we did look better, especially on the outside with the additions of Amir Speed and other corners. I'm very curious to see who steps up with the losses of Xavier Henderson and linebacker Darius Snow. The middle of that offense is a bit of a concern with those two guys out. They are two of our best defensive players, so I think this is a great game to see who can step up, who can fill some holes going forward. It's going to be a good test. We've got a much lesser team at home. I think this is a great opportunity for some people to step up, make some plays, and earn some of that playing time. Akron simply did not look good whatsoever last week. And even though the Spartans covered last week, I kind of see this as a bit of a bounce-back game. We need to build some more rhythm on the offensive side of the ball, especially with Peyton Thorne, before we travel to Washington next week. Washington could be a tough game. I don't think they're nearly as good as we are, but that's a bit of a trap going all the way to the East Coast. I know Peyton Thorne wants to build a bit more rhythm with those wide receivers before we head out there. That being said, I love Sparty all day long here. Give me Michigan State minus 21 first half and Michigan State to cover the 34.5 for the game. The next game on the slate is going to be Kentucky traveling down to Gainesville to take on the Florida Gators. This is going to be an awesome game under the lights, back in the swamp as both of these teams start SEC play. After a slow start last week, Kentucky took care of business in the second half, beating Miami of Ohio 37-13 and covering their spread. Florida, obviously, an insane win last week against Utah. That game looked like it was going to at least overtime, if not Utah winning that game at the end. Utah put together a great drive, had a lot of rhythm, and obviously they came up with a big play in the end. One of the toughest losses of my week last week, unfortunately, but Anthony Richardson looks like the real deal. He looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the country. The question is now, can they hold up at home again against another great team and, more importantly, an SEC opponent? I personally think this is a textbook letdown spot for the Gators here at home after that huge top 10 win last week. Kentucky knows this. I think they're going to be ready to go. They're going to be hungry going into the swamp. If Kentucky can limit the huge plays from Anthony Richardson, limit those electrifying plays, kind of control the pace, win the game in the trenches, play some good, solid, old school SEC football, I honestly think they can go down there and win this game. So, that being said, I love taking the points with Kentucky here. I'm going to move it just because I want a little bit more cushion. I'm going to take Kentucky +7, give myself a touchdown cushion just in case Anthony Richardson goes crazy, which is very possible with his talent. But this is a letdown spot, in my opinion. Kentucky's going to be hungry. They're going to be ready to go. Give me the Wildcats to cover 7 points in the swamp. Next game on the slate is going to be Kent State traveling to Oklahoma to take on the Sooners. The Sooners are 33.5-point favorites at home. This Kent State team is coming off of giving up 525 yards of offense to Washington on the road. Oklahoma obviously has one of the most dynamic offenses in the country, put up 45 points last week and over 500 yards of offense against, in my opinion, a much better UTEP team. Kent State is just simply going to have no answer for the offense all day long. I expect Dillon Gabriel to continue to try and build some rhythm with those wide receivers, the offense to get into a bit more of a rhythm. They did slow down after an electric first quarter last week, and I think it's important in a game like this for them to continue to get those reps in together. I know this is a ton of points, but Oklahoma is just so good on offense, and Kent State looked horrendous on defense last week. So I'm going to take Oklahoma to cover that 33.5 points at home, and also Oklahoma's team total over 52.5. If we can get some big plays, kick return, punt return maybe, I think this goes way over. So give me those two plays for the Sooners. Last game of the episode here, Baylor is traveling to BYU to take on the Cougars in Provo. BYU are 2.5-point favorites at home here. Both of these offenses put up 50-plus points last week, actually put up the same amount of yards as well, 573 yards of offense for both of these teams. This Baylor defense is not as good as it was last year, and even against much lesser opponents last week, both of these teams gave up 240-plus yards against those opponents. I'm going to ride with Big Cat here. It is the Queen Elizabeth in Memoriam game of the year. There's nothing better than a late over to tuck you in. I think the offenses are just going to be way too much for both of these teams here. The defenses are going to get a bit overwhelmed. And this total isn't incredibly high. So give me the over 52.5 in this one to close out the night. That's going to do it for this episode of Pozios Picks. I know I left some games off the board, but I mean, like the Michigan game, what? Am I going to tell you to take Michigan to cover 52 points, take their team total over 60? I don't know. That's a ton of points. Sorry to the hometown crowd, but I'm not going to bet on that game. That's just way too many points. Before we get out of here, though, I do want to give a shout-out to Pickett. You guys know about Pickett already, but if you don't, it is way more than an app to just track your bets. The features they have been adding lately are just ridiculous. Line shopping, bet tagging, player prop line shopping. I don't know of any other app that has that. It's just incredible. When you sign up on Pickett, be sure to use our promo code POZIOSPICKS for either a $3 or, if you're lucky, a $100 bonus that goes right to your Venmo account. Just sign up, link your sportsbook, track all of your bets, see what the community is taking, what the people are thinking. It is really just the best app, and it is perfect for this football season. Also, be sure to check out our merch website. We've got a ton of new merch dropping as well. Be sure to follow us over on Twitter. All those links will be down below. Follow us on Pickett as well if you haven't. We are going to have picks all weekend. I'm sure I'm going to add some more picks to this card as well, so do not miss out on those. Thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate it. Good luck on your Saturday, and we will see you guys tomorrow for the NFL Week 1 episode. Peace. Peace.